Hey everyone, this is Anna. So I thought I would come on and share a tutorial on watercoloring my new holly branch stamp from SweetMissDaisy Designs. So I've got my mini Misty out and I'm going to go ahead and stamp the holly on a piece of, let's see, I think I'm going to use Gen Craft watercolor paper for this one. It's just an inexpensive watercolor paper that says it's 100% cotton, but I don't know if I trust that, but it's an inexpensive watercolor paper anyway. And I'm going to put the holly down on my watercolor paper and then get it positioned just so. And this is slightly larger than a A2 card size, so I'll be able to trim down my holly stamped image when I go to make my card. So I don't have to be too precise when I do my stamping here. And that'll give me a little bit of extra room to play with the background. I'm going to be using VersaFine Clair ink to stamp my image so that it's in a permanent ink. And will work with the watercolors. It won't bleed when I watercolor. So I'm just going to give that a nice press down. Make sure I get a good stamp impression. And I love working with the Misty. So you might be able to see here, up in the top here, I didn't get a great impression here with the first stamping. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp it again. That's the wonderful thing about the Misty, is it allows you to stamp multiple times in the same place to get a really nice, clean image. All right, and I'm going to leave the holly in my Misty in case I decide that I want to come back and re-stamp it after I paint it. So that's another thing that's nice about the Misty, is it does allow you the convenience of stamping it again even as you work on your project. So I'm going to set this aside and let me get out some watercolors. All right, so I'm going to use, for this one, I'm going to use my Milang watercolors, and these are a dye-based watercolor, so they don't have any, light fast qualities or anything like that guaranteed. And I'm gonna also get myself some clear water. All right, so I've got myself some nice clean water. I'm gonna set that there, and I also have a towel here at the edge of my desk which I can use to dab off my paintbrush here as I go. So I'm going to be using a Princeton Snap number 4. This is a round brush. And let's see. I can never actually get zoomed in enough for you guys to see the painting process really well, and also the palette. So let's see if that works. All right, and hopefully my camera will stay focused down on the painted image instead of jumping back and forth to my hand. So hopefully that is set for you as well. I'm just going to start by picking up a couple medium tone greens and painting my holly leaves. I'm going to start at the top of the holly and then work my way down to various different leaves. And anywhere that might touch another area, I'm going to skip over and go find a different spot to paint so that I don't have two areas touching that will bleed into each other. So just getting a little bit of color down on there. So see how these two leaves touch each other? I want to skip this leaf and go to one that doesn't touch the one I've just painted. And you always kind of want to think about where your light source is coming from. Do you want it to come from a particular side? You could do a left side or a right side, or you could do a front facing or a top down light source. I think for this one, I'll kind of do like a top down light source. So anything that's kind of in the shadows here will be a little bit darker and towards the center of the holly. And then anything that's out on the outside edges, like these outside corners here and edges of the leaves, those might be my lighter areas, or maybe the top side of the leaves here might catch a little more light, and here where it might fold down and be out of the light, this bottom side here could be a little bit darker. So, or you could just paint them and not really worry about a light source, and that's perfectly acceptable too. Just depends on how realistic, I guess, you want things to look. You could even use unrealistic colors to paint your holly, and that would be fun too. But I'm just going to throw in a really nice, even first base of color here. And then I'll go back and add some additional colors to add more dimension and depth to my painting. I'm just trying to stay within the lines of the painting, or the stamped image here. All right, so now I think I'll go back up here to this leaf up here. And now that I've made my way down to the bottom of the holly and avoided anything that was touching other areas I painted, all right. And now I can come back in to the other leaves that I've already painted, and I can drop in a little bit more color. Let's see. A little bit of olive green. You could also drop in yellows or turquoises too. That's pretty. I'll show that. So add a brighter green there. All right, let's move on to the second leaf here. And maybe I want to put a little bit of blue into that leaf as well. Okay, now on this leaf here, I might want to add a little bit of yellow to the top side so we get a little bit more light on there. So maybe a little bit yellow ochre. And then maybe a little bit of olive. Maybe that's an older leaf, you know, has a slightly different color tone. Okay, now we're going to move down to this one here and add a little green to that one. I'm trying to find just the right green that I want to use here. I think it's this one. Yeah. There we go. A little bit more yellow in there. I was out in the garden today and I dug up 2.5 beds of dahlia tubers, and I planted 300 tulip bulbs. So that was my garden effort for the day. I'll be out there again tomorrow, hopefully finishing the dahlia beds. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of blue to this one. Just drop that in here like that. And as those dry, those colors will spread and mingle a little bit. And then I might even add a little bit of olive green to that one as well. Like that. All right, now I'm going to move down to this leaf, this one here. And I think I want to add a little bit more blue to this one. It just seems to be a little bit more in the background. So if I can darken up that leaf just a smidge with some blue, that'd be nice. There's that one. Let's see, I'll move down to this one here. And this one might be catching a fair amount of light since it's kind of turned up. So I'll add some yellow green up to the top side and then some darker green on the bottom side. All right, now next is, I want to fill in those little points there. All right, next I'm going to do this leaf here, and I think I'm going to do that one kind of a darker mid-tone green. And maybe drop in just a little bit of blue here at the back end. All right, and then onto this one, I think I'll do this one more of that olive green color on the top side here, and then add a little bit of blue on the point down here where it could be falling away from the light. All right. I think I will come back up to maybe this leaf here. This one that's kind of folded forward looks like it's dry enough not to mix and mingle with the one below it, so I'll try and paint it pretty carefully. Being careful not to touch into that leaf on the top there. I think I'm about due for a new paintbrush. This one's, the tip of it is getting a little frazzled. But this paintbrush is also going on like, I don't know, 5 years or more. And it's bound to get a little frazzled. All right, so there's that one painted. I'm going to drop a little bit of blue into this leaf as well. And I'm using the Payne's Gray. It's kind of an indigo blue in this particular set. There we go. Let's see. I might be able to come up and do this leaf now as well. I'll just have to be careful with the one above it there. And then I think I'll add some blue to this leaf as well, but down here where it is joining to the stem. And then I'm going to come down and paint this one last leaf down here. And then the last thing I'm going to paint are the outside tips of these 3 leaves here. But I want to make sure that these leaves are nice and dry first. I definitely don't want the ink to be running from that folded tip into the other side of the leaf. So I'll come down here and paint this one first, using that really beautiful blue I have on my brush. And being careful to not touch this leaf over here because this is still pretty wet over here. And now once I have this really beautiful base of blue on here, I could drop some yellow or olive into it. And that'll green it up really nice. All right. So while those leaves are drying, I see that I can work on some of the berries here and the branch down here. So I might as well continue working while I let the holly leaves dry. For the berries, I'm going to use a really nice dark red from my palette. And I might mix in a little bit of indigo to kind of darken it up just a smidge. And I'm just going to come in here and start painting some of my berries. I'm just going to put like an even base color on them for now, and then I can come back in and deepen it up a little bit as well. If I leave a little bit of highlight or if I miss a spot, that's okay. That'll just give the berries a little bit more dimension. All right, now I think what I'll do is I'll load my paintbrush up with that dark red again, but not have it be such a watered down pigment. And I can come in and I can drop some of that pigment in on these damp berries. And then that color won't spread so far, but it will still kind of blur out the edges enough so that it blends in with the base layer that I've painted. I'm kind of making sure that this darker color I'm adding is towards the bottom of the underside of the berries. And there's a couple here that I want to darken up even more. I think those look pretty. And I can work on my holly stem down here at the bottom as well. Add a little bit of brown. And if it bleeds a little bit into my berries, that's okay. It'd be nice to have that color transfer back and forth, actually. I do want to be careful around the leaves, though. I don't really want any of my stem to bleed into the top side of the leaves, because that's not where the leaf would be attaching to the stem. So all right, so there we go with that. Now I think these 3 outside areas are dry enough. I'll be able to go in and paint those folded areas. And I think I'm going to use an olivey green on this one. because it is the underside of the leaf that we're seeing, and so it would be a definitely different color than the top side, especially if it's rolling away from the light. But I'm just going to use an olivey green. On the next one as well. The sun is setting so fast now. It's like in the summertime, even if the sun sets, it's still light enough to be outside for, an hour without having flashlights or anything. But now, as soon as that sun sets, it's like so dark. And cold. It's going to be cold tonight. All right, so there are those 3 undersides. I think that looks so pretty. Now, I definitely need this to dry because when I paint my background, I don't want to risk any color from my holly bleeding out into my background, or my background bleeding into the holly. So now I am going to let this sit and dry. So I'll be right back. All right, so my background is mostly dried. I think it's still a little damp, but I'll be super careful. I think I'm going to paint the background with yellow. I really like the look of the holly against a yellow background, and so this will be a nice way to kind of warm up the whole entire scene here. And so I'm just going to grab a little bit of yellow ochre and paint that in and around the holly. And when I get to the outside edges here, I can go ahead and drag that color out with just more water, and then that will leave a really nice, beautiful, soft outside edge. With the more yellow being concentrated within the leaves of the holly, and then getting lighter as we get out towards the edges. And then grab some plain water and pull that color out. And you can go even in when it's still damp and add a little bit more if you want, and then that will still feather out really nicely into your water area. So it's so easy and fun to watercolor paint. Get a little water added there, and then come in with some pigment, and you can drop it into the water. Or if you prefer, you can do paint on dry paper and then come back in with that clear water and pull that color out. So I'm going to turn this a little bit so I can get my paintbrush in and amongst these holly leaves here. And then come in with some clear water and pull that color out. I love turning my paper so that it's comfortable for me where I'm painting instead of struggling at an uncomfortable position. It's always nicer to paint when you're comfortable. You could go back too if you decide you want a little more color in some areas. You can go back and add it. And then just use clear water again to pull that extra color you've added out into your other areas, and it'll blend in really nicely. So there we have our first painted holly image. And you could also add splatter to that. You could use that beautiful blue that we added to the holly leaves. You could use gold. I'm going to let this dry though, and I will splatter it when I get my card all created. So hope this was enjoyable. Hope it was fun, and hope you're inspired to pull out your watercolors. And this is not an expensive paint set. This is like a $15 paint set on Amazon. So it's very inexpensive, very readily available, and it does a beautiful job. So there we have one painted holly image. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned. I'll do some more painting of this holly image. Thanks for watching. Bye.